and we should be good to go.
Amazing, Wendy. Thanks for that enthusiastic introduction. Thank you, everyone, for taking this sort of the end of the school day, the afternoon, to take time. I know that you're all of the places that you may be in transit, at school, at home, all of those places, and know that I'm just happy that you're here and in whatever way it makes sense to be in this space. So, in a little bit, we'll have time. We want opportunities for us to talk with each other and share ideas, all of that. That's part of this. But there's certainly sections where we're just sharing stories and want you to be able to, if you need to turn your camera off and just kind of absorb and listen over the course of the next hour, that's fine too. Um, and I assume because of the connectedness of your group, you may continue the conversations later on. So even if it doesn't happen here in this space, we know that it'll happen. But I am excited to get to know you a little bit better as I share the work about StoryCorps resources that we have that are free and available to support students as they develop storytelling skills, skills in speaking and listening, practicing their social and self-awareness and perspective taking, and using story and conversation to strengthen relationships with each other, with their school community, and with their larger community. I am the Director of Learning and Engagement at StoryCorps. I have been here for almost a decade at this point, and I've really touched every part of what we do. And in my team, what we really think about and what makes us incredibly excited is thinking about the ways and providing tools so that people can use StoryCorps stories, use our methods wherever you are, and really build really robust, exciting storytelling culture where you are. So I will ask you, if it's accessible to you to use the chat to introduce yourself for my benefit as someone who does not know you. If you could give the usual introduction of where you're coming from and maybe the grades that you teach, and then our real StoryCorps question that I want you to answer is, just tell us something that brought you joy recently. Um, and we'll give folks a chance maybe to go in the chat, and knowing that everyone is not able to do that, we can give, if one or two people want to just unmute yourself, and maybe one or two people just tell us something that was joyful for you in the past week. See, I don't know if I can see everyone. Oh, we have concerts. Oh, this is gonna really bring me these were my favorite classes when I was in school. So this is really gonna bring me joy, kind of having these memories of, oh my goodness, concertos, concerts, family visits. Um, I am really gonna lean on I have 2 cats, I'm gonna be honest, and, they have just been, I don't know, particularly boisterous this week, and that just gives me the greatest joy. Um, oh my goodness. Um Oh, this is all just I hope that you're all able to see some of these stories later. We're watching students in basketball tournaments, students playing in ensembles. Oh, congratulations, Jeffrey, to your wife. This is okay. Thank you all for participating in this with me, and spreading your joy. Um, so what are we going to do together? We already kind of took care of some of our housekeeping, etc. What's going to happen in the next sort of hour together? I'm going to introduce StoryCorps to you, just in a general way, so um, what we are, where I'm coming from, what we have to offer. There's a little reflection we'll think about together, where I want to hear how you're using stories, particularly student-led stories, maybe already in your classroom or your community. Um, And I have my agenda wrong. I'm amending myself. I have a group of stories that I really want to share with you, where we get to hear a lot of student voice and student inquiry. And then I will share with you some of the resources that we have, and we're going to imagine together in a breakout what that's sparking for you, how you think that maybe you could use this StoryCorps model or stories combined with the resources you have, maybe this podcasting equipment and the things that are starting to bubble up that you might want to do around story in your classroom. Oh, I jumped ahead. Oh, I'm jumping ahead, and ahead. Um, so all you can see, whew, I like to just give ourselves a moment because I'm also working at the end of my day and I've been jazzed up working on so many things. So we all need, let's kind of take the moment. If it is safe for you, don't do this. Maybe if you're driving, you can kind of create your own little meditation. But I really invite you on the next slide, we can just do a little guided breath for a couple of seconds, just to kind of center ourselves and move ourselves from the day that's been into what we're doing. I will invite you before you do that to scrunch your shoulders way up. You may already be this high from your day, and scrunch, feel that tension, and then just let it go and sigh. And now I'm going to put this, if you can see the screen, we'll just follow along for 3 breaths. It'll invite you to inhale, hold, exhale, and hold. We're just going to do that quietly together for 3 breaths. Breathe in, hold, out, hold, and just one more. Okay, let that go. Fantastic. So as we get started, I hope you just feel like, whew, just give ourselves a moment there. I am curious, and I'm trying to want to be able to see as many of you as I can. So you can answer in the chat, or you can use your sort of like emojis to let me know how many of you, before Wendy uh, roped you into this and invited you, how many of you had heard of StoryCorps before? Was it familiar to you? Let's see. Okay. Sounds like I'm not seeing any affirmative emojis. I'm seeing some no's. Okay. Oh, this is my favorite. Okay. Great. So this is mostly new friends, this means, in the audience here, which I love. So it sounds like most of you are unfamiliar. So I am going to just take a couple of minutes to run through who we are at StoryCorps, our mission, the history, and model of what we do. Um, we are actually an independent nonprofit, independent of NPR, connected on our own. And our mission is to help us believe in each other by illuminating the humanity and possibility in us all, one story at a time. And we do that by bringing people together to have conversations with loved ones and friends about the things that matter most to them, about archiving those conversations at the Library of Congress for future generations to hear and to listen to, and then also by bringing stories out of that collection and into the world so that we can listen to them and learn from one another. And it really is at its heart a project about sharing wisdom and gratitude and respect across generations. So we actually started in New York City in 2003. We had our 20th birthday this past year. And we started with this tiny recording booth in Grand Central Terminal in New York City. So you can imagine, sort of in the hustle and bustle of New York City, of that transit station, there was this soundproof recording booth. And we invited people into that space, 2 people at a time, to sit face to face and ask each other about questions that we don't take the time to do every day. What are you most proud of? How do you want to be remembered? How has your life turned out differently than you expected? Um, and since then, that was many years ago, but our model has really remained the same. And we've just taken that across the country and into more and more spaces. And at this point, more than 650,000 people have come together and shared their voices in our archive, which is housed and stewarded at the Library of Congress. You can see the reading room at the American Folklife Center here. And also available online at archive.storycorps.org. And so, with all of those voices, that really is the single collection of human voices gathered in one place. And really, people speaking about their own lives in their own words on their own terms. So, again, you can search that archive, unedited conversations, at archive.storycorps.org. Um, so since then, we don't have that booth in Grand Central Terminal, though we continue to have some space in New York City where we work with our partners. But we continue to travel around the country. We have this Airstream trailer. It has a recording booth inside, and we visit 10 cities every year. We also have other partnerships. We work with different organizations that bring us to them. And also now have built some tools to really democratize the process of storytelling. So we built an app which just takes your phone that you have, it turns it into that guided recording experience. Your phone becomes your recording device, and you can immediately contribute the stories that you record there into the StoryCorps archive. And since the pandemic, we adapted pretty quickly and developed a virtual platform so that you can do that same thing, but connected, similar to how we're connecting in Zoom, but in a way that allows you to record a conversation with someone who's not near you, and you can contribute that conversation again to the StoryCorps archive. We can talk a little bit more about that later. But like I said, we take those stories, we have these unedited conversations, and we don't want them to sit on a dusty digital shelf for no one to listen to. The power of archives is access. And so we have producers at StoryCorps that take a small number of these stories and edit them into sort of the heart of those stories in about 3 minutes long, so that it's easier for us to listen and share. And consistently on Friday mornings on National Public Radio, there's a small little segment where you'll hear one story every week. But also, if you follow us on social media, we have 20 years worth of stories that we continue to share all the time on Instagram, on Twitter, X, on just Facebook. I think we still do. So all of those spaces, you can continue to hear those stories, new stories coming in all the time. Um, and then we'll see some of these today. We've turned some of them into animations, and can view those as well. Um, really, I'm yapping about that, but StoryCorps is about stories, and the best way to understand what we do is by listening. So we're going to listen to one of the stories from our collection now. You can see that some of the people who will be talking here. So after years of work in the Philippines, Ciencia Tan came to the United States in 1982 to help raise her grandchildren, who called her Lola. She passed away in 2016 at the age of 96, and she had spent her final years in the company of her grandson, Kenneth. So this picture you'll see, this illustration is illustrating Crescencia and Kenneth together here. After she died, Kenneth came to StoryCorps with his mother to reminisce about the greatest lesson that Lola ever taught him. So let's watch that now.
Lola was my first roommate when I was a kid. So we shared a room. She would keep the light on every night because she would be up praying and the light would still be on in the morning. And I just always remember her in the kitchen making hopia, smoothing out the mung bean, making little pockets with the dough and stuffing them in pink donut boxes. And she would let me eat the duds. How did I not have like childhood diabetes?
The kitchen was always greasy and the electric bill was going up. But that was Lola's business and she never stopped working. I was told that when she was little, she was the top student, but my mom did not finish high school because my grandfather passed away early. So she did all kinds of work to support her family. And when she had her children, she had to provide for us. There was nobody else. There was no such thing as vacation. And when Lola got older, she lived with us, bringing up her grandchildren.
Yeah, it was, I think, 2014. And you called me. You were caring for Lola at the time. And so I wanted to come home to help care for Lola because she'd always been the one who took care of all of us. Before she passed, she'd tell me stories about her life. And that's when Lola and I started painting them. You know, I think I learned from Lola that there's a difference between your job and your work. Your job is something you leave behind at the end of a day, but your work is everything you leave behind at the end of a lifetime. Lola, she didn't have the most glamorous jobs, but I think her work was all of us.
It's her love for us that I remember most. It was not so much of hugging or saying I love you, but it was all the things she did. You're right. We are. We are her work.
I love those pictures. Um, oh, sorry. I love that that's sort of a story inside of a story. Because they really, Kenneth talks about or it says at the end, they really worked together. She was sharing her stories and he was painting them. Art was something they shared. I'm sharing a link, not to sell you anything. I have no skin in that game, but just so you can see, Kenneth took those paintings that he made using Crescencia's stories and put them into a book. So even if you click in, you can see some examples by clicking through the preview of the book, which is really, really lovely. So you can hear from that conversation where Kenneth was talking to his mom, Olivia, you can really hear what the key ingredients to a StoryCorps style conversation is. So, what gets us to those 3-minute stories that you hear that are really special. The first is something that we sometimes refer to as the sacred space. But another way of thinking about that is intention, that people come together and take time away from the busyness of our lives and actually sit down and say, I want to invite you into this conversation. And these are the things that I'm curious about. This is what I want to ask you about. And they step away again from the distractions of our life. And, I often ask myself this, I ask groups this. When was the last time that happened in your life where you were sitting face to face with someone, not multitasking, not with your phone on or, giving you notifications, not sort of like simultaneously, these are great conversations too, but not simultaneously cooking dinner or an interruption from a pet, from a child. And I will be honest, I will give that vulnerability to you to say that sometimes even today, if I think, when was the last time for 40 minutes I sat down with my partner and only talking and listening and not doing something else, it would be hard for me to think about when that time was. I'd have to stretch back maybe a few months. And so that's part of what makes these really special conversations. And to take the time to ask questions, we're just not asking every day for us to think about the big moments of our lives. The second is that it's conversational. So instead of, you heard Kenneth and Olivia talking to each other, someone from StoryCorps wasn't interviewing them. It's not a journalist. It's not a historian. It's not a media person who's interviewing you. It's bringing people together who know each other, who have an interest, and are invested in each other. And so they're going to ask different kinds of questions, and ask questions back and forth. And then finally, at StoryCorps, really the drive is that it's participant led, that no matter what context you're coming in, our facilitators, there's a StoryCorps staff person there. They will always tell the folks who are coming in that, this is your time. And so you use it the way that you'd like to use it. You ask the questions you'd like to ask. We don't have an agenda there. And so what you get is sometimes surprising and wonderful things that we would never have thought to ask. And that's really driven by them. And as a result, we just hear over and over from people who sit down in those conversations, but also who listen to them on social media, on the radio, and all of those spaces. We hear how the power of telling your story or receiving that story, or even just listening to other people's stories the way that we just did, it helps people feel more connected to one another. It helps people feel validated that their stories matter. And feel that they understand one another better. So that's sort of the joy of that there. So my question, and I think actually we have a good number where we could really just do this in the chat. We can kind of see this in the chat, but and if anybody wants to be thoughtful and brave, you can raise your hand and we can call on you. But just a really quick meditation. How are you currently in your arts classrooms? How do you use story? How does story come into that, into your work? So if anyone wants to just write about that in the chat, or if anyone wants to speak, if you're feeling like that's a little bit easier today than writing, I would just love to hear how is story already working in the work that you do? Right. I see Susan saying using those personal stories as a springboard for other visual projects. Anyone else? We all know that.
I'm driving. So
Hannah, thank
I'll
you.
unmute and talk if that's okay.
Yeah.
So in November we did veterans portrait.
Oh, Hannah, we might be losing you a little bit.
But oh, sorry. Can you hear me now?
I think so. Let's try again.
Okay. We did veterans portraits in my classroom, and part of that assignment was for them to interview a veteran or someone who is close to them if they're deceased. But currently we're working on a project with the Smithsonian, and they shared StoryCorps with me to use that as a resource for the oral history part of the portrait project with the Smithsonian.
Well, that's just like the best story I heard all day. Thanks, Hannah. I absolutely love that. And I see Greta saying using composer stories to introduce new music, and personal stories about perseverance and not giving up. I just want to say I was obsessed with stories about composers when I was in middle school. I had a couple books that I could not get enough of them. And of course, in literature, using stories and writing personal narratives, interviewing and reflecting. I love all of this. Keep them coming, share more. I know we're moving pretty quickly through this so that we can get time to hear more stories and reflect on them. But I would love to hear. This gives me a lot of information and joy to know how stories actually have life in your classrooms. And one last one before we move on is seeing Sandy talk about dance, like folk dance, and sparking conversations and leading to those intergenerational storytelling. I just absolutely love this. So I am going to share, just as a little bit of inspiration, some of the stories that we have in our collection where we can really hear from particularly students. And so I have 3 stories to share here, and we're going to hear students talking to one another. We're going to hear students talking to someone in their world, in this case, family. But we can sort of imagine students interviewing and talking to family or other community members like veterans. And then finally, we'll hear a story where we actually hear a conversation between a teacher and a student. But we have so many stories. This is the hardest part of my job, is only choosing some, but I really love uplifting the voices of students. So us centering that and finding ways that we're actually hearing them participate really fully in these conversations. So to begin, let me just find here. So these are 2 Brooklyn High School students, Akiva and Henry. So they recorded a conversation about their friendship and their life experiences. They were in a classroom that used StoryCorps, storytelling prompts, StoryCorps listening practice throughout the year. So they had been sort of working on these skills, but they then sat down and recorded a conversation officially with StoryCorps together. And when they were talking, Akiva, he's on the left, he shared that he and his mother were displaced from their home after Hurricane Sandy. And they had been spending parts of the few years that followed in homeless shelters across New York City. And Henry, who's on the right, he had shared throughout his conversation that when he was 13, he left Mexico to come to the United States with his aunt. And so he had left his parents and younger brother behind. So we're going to just hear them using this as a chance to talk with each other.
When we went to the airport, my little brother was crying. I tried to act tough on him, but I gave him a hug. I've never given him a hug like that before. And I started crying too.
Do you miss your mom all the time?
Yeah, you already know this, bro. That's one of the hardest things for me.
I do understand your feeling though, because I was separated from my mom for like 3-4 years, I think.
It's hard to leave everything you know. When I first started 8th grade, my English was not that good at all. We had to give a presentation, and everybody was making fun of me. But 9th grade, it got better. What are you most proud about?
I'd say the challenges I've passed. Like last Christmas, I was in the shelter and everyone else was getting these big gifts. I didn't get anything that Christmas.
You never told me that you was in a shelter.
Usually when I have like situations, I won't talk to anyone about it. And I felt like sad all the time. But you would smile and like cheer me up.
I might look big and tough, but
Teddy bear inside.
yeah, I'm a teddy bear inside.
The fact that your outside shines so bright is like one of your best attributes.
You never give up. That's what I like about you. We always stick together.
Like magnets.
In this next story, not this one, we already listened to that one. You'd think after this much time, I would have my Zoom life figured out here. So this is just a little illustration of Myra and her mom, Bonnie. And this was recorded a number of years ago. Myra was 15 years old at the time. Her mom, Bonnie, has intellectual disabilities, and Myra wanted to use the time to really talk with her mom about being a mom. So let's listen to this one.
When you found out you were pregnant with me, like, what did you think? I was very happy and I was also scared. Why were you scared?
Because I had never been pregnant before, I never had really an idea of how to care for a baby.
Did you ever feel like I was too much to handle, like ever?
No, I think because I'm different, it might seem hard for me, but I was going to give it all I got no matter what.
When I was a kid, I didn't realize that you were different, and you actually had to tell me because I wasn't figuring it out.
I said to you, I said, Myra, I know I'm not like your friends' mothers, but I'm doing the best I can. And you said, it's okay, Mommy, and that made me feel so good. Has my disability affected your life?
I guess, like when I was little, you had to go in for my parent-teacher conference, and like as a disclosure, I was like, my mom's disabled, but the day after the interview, my teacher said that you seemed really intelligent, and that made me feel embarrassed.
Why?
Because I kind of felt bad that I had said that, and then you'd gone and you'd been fine.
No offense taken, you were just giving her a heads up, right?
Yeah. What's the hardest thing that you've overcome?
Being hurt from people. Not physical, but just
Like emotionally?
Yeah.
There were times when we would go out and people would just blatantly stare, and I would say something. I guess I'm kind of protective.
I'm really thankful because you understand me and you love me and you accept me, and thank you for that.
I don't know, you kind of make it seem like I tolerate you. I love you. You're a good parent. And just because you're disabled doesn't mean that you do anything less for me. You want me to succeed.
Yes, I do. I want you to make something of yourself.
I want you to know that even though our situation is unique, I'm happy that I'm in it because I'm happy that I'm with you.
Thank you, Myra. And I feel the same way. I would never change it for anything in this world.
You know, these are the kinds of conversations
When you
that happen when we actually sit down and have them, and ask each other questions. I'm sure that all of that wasn't coming up every day, in Bonnie and Myra's life, but they took the time to have that, and they got to share with each other. This last conversation, this we're going to hear actually, this is Celeste Davis Carr. She is a teacher, or was a teacher. I'd have to check the current, but at Corliss High School on the south side of Chicago. And she also had really been working on StoryCorps programming in her classroom. And so students would respond to prompts sort of individually. They would record kind of answers to questions singularly, not in a conversation that we've been talking. And teachers would listen to them, and they kind of worked towards the end of the year being able to write a personal essay that they could use for their common application for college. But along the way, there were lots of reflections, really looking at their own lives and who they are and the people in their lives and where they came from. So through that process, those sort of individual recordings that students were making, Celeste learned that Aaron, who was a freshman at the time, was homeless, that his family did not have permanent housing. And so a year later, they sat down, actually sort of again officially with StoryCorps, with our staff, to record this more official conversation. But we're going to hear from Celeste and Aaron, and we don't have Aaron's picture, just in order to preserve his own, his own identity there.
when you shared your StoryCorps recording with everyone, how did you feel, Aaron?
I felt awkward, like a big load was let off.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I just said it. I don't know what made me say it, but I'm like, let me just be honest and just get it out.
I was scared because I felt helpless. I didn't know what to do. But at the same time, I felt I had an obligation to try my best to help you.
Yeah, I didn't even know you actually listened to that one.
I listened to all of them, Aaron.
Yeah, I didn't really think that I would ever tell a teacher, but it makes me know that you're special because you care. Like, you talk to me and make sure that I'm cool.
Mm-hmm.
Because Sometimes kids were bullying me, called me a freak of nature, throwing chairs, throwing glass and stuff at me.
I've had to deal with some bullying issues when I was in school, but not to the extent that you have. I was always picked on because I was a tomboy.
You seem pretty cool. I didn't think no one would mess with you.
So overall, how do you feel? You have more friends this year?
Yes, I have more friends this year.
So it's better than last year.
Yeah. I'm in a foster home now. Been since October.
Do you feel different living in a foster home?
It's good, actually. I feel comfortable where I am now. It kind of feels like home.
So can I tell you one thing that I really admire about you, Aaron? Because I've never told you. Do you know that how strong you are?
No.
You never realized that.
No.
But you have a strength that no matter what anyone says about you or they do to you, you don't change who you are as a person. And a lot of people don't have that strength. So I admire that about you.
Thank you.
Don't make me cry again. Okay? I want to see you happy. Just your smile is the best moments of you.
Thank you. That means a lot to me.
You know, I love when Celeste says to him, uses the moment to tell him what she sees in him. And I think that's something that we see all the time at StoryCorps, that when people use that intentional time, you know, they do want to ask the big questions, and it feels important to put on the record the ways that we care about each other. And I think almost, you know, so often when family members are talking to one another, one of the big things that they're saying sort of before the end of their conversation is, I love you, I'm proud of you. And those become really meaningful conversations to have later on. I know that I am really grateful to have had recorded with my parents a number of times. You know, I would say in the past, that's the benefit of working at StoryCorps, that I have such access, but all of us have access to this, you know, to be able to share it with StoryCorps or just have it on your own. Um, and my father passed a few years ago, and I was so grateful. One of the first things that I went to was this series of conversations that I recorded probably 15 years ago with him. And to be able to just hear the sound of his voice, and also to hear differently the conversation that we had at the time, which I don't think I would have remembered everything that we talked about, but I heard it so differently, it being that many years later, but also, you know, from the ear of really just wanting to hear him talk about his own life and hear the way that he talked to me.
When
So we talked a little bit, I talked a little bit before just generally about what we know about, you know, what it means to participate in stories, to listen to them. But we also know just a little bit more about in the past when we've had teachers using sort of a supported curriculum. We don't have that anymore, but where they were really using these prompts, these conversations in their classroom. What we heard from those students and those teachers is that students reported that they were better able to express themselves and express who they are better. So they built those skills in reflection and communicating about that. And teachers reported, every teacher and student didn't have a conversation the way that Aaron and Celeste did, but just through what was happening in their classroom, they said that they understood and had a stronger relationship with their students. And teachers were reporting a greater belief in their students' ability to succeed, and believing that what they're doing was actually making a difference in their students' lives. And we can hear from students, this one student who was using sort of StoryCorps in their classroom. They said, at first, when we were introduced to StoryCorps, I thought, I don't have a story interesting enough to tell. I'm sure I wasn't the only one who was thinking that. I was wrong. Everyone has a story to tell, whether you think it's interesting or not. That's what defines you. That's what makes you you. And that's really the heart of everything that we're doing at StoryCorps. So I want to, oh, we don't need that yet. I just want to get a sense, if anyone wants to, you know, if you have any reactions to the stories, you can share them or unmute before we really take just a little bit of time to think together about what this might mean in your classroom. So if anyone has just any kind of immediate thoughts or reactions hearing those stories.
I was having a conversation with a fellow teacher just this week because we've been doing folk dancing. And of course, you have to hold hands and cooties and all that stuff, elementary kids. And we were just lamenting the fact that, especially since COVID, students don't know how to have a conversation. And even in their own homes, they're also isolated with their devices. And we are losing that sense of community. And I've been nearly in tears through all of these stories because it's simple stories, but it's powerful. And these kids need to know how to tell their own story and to know that what they have to say and what they're listening to is so important just for humanity.
Oh, thank you, Sandy. Does
And
anyone
to
else want to
listen
just share immediate reaction?
and to listen to other people's stories.
Yeah. I think it's exciting for me to be in this space to hear what the spaces that you might be able to make for that, which is different than some other classrooms. I mean, I just think how, again, for me, being in music classroom, for me, music in particular, but, and other classrooms really felt like it was about finding myself and expression in a different way that was not available in other spaces in school. So I know we have such limited time. So I kind of want to do a little rapid fire of this. And Wendy, if you can help me, I want us to, I'm going to do two things here. One, I think hopefully this will work. If anyone, I think I see people here. I know some people who are off camera. So, let's see. Maybe let's do like a really quick check-in if people are available to be able to say are you present for and able to be in a small group conversation? Maybe if you're sort of here and present for that, maybe just write a little yes in the chat. Because I understand, it might be that you're having to kind of multitask, in which case we can do it in a little bit of a different way. Trying to count the numbers compared to our numbers, Wendy. 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7. Okay, here's what I think actually we're gonna do this all together. Just in case, because sometimes we're I understand. We might be on a walk, we might be washing dishes, we got stuff to do. So I want to, to really ask this question. Oh, look how I did it backwards for myself. Now that we've been doing that, let's use this time to really brainstorm together. What are ideas that are sparking in terms of, I know you have recording equipment, right? So that is something that is available to you. But just in thinking about the concept of, of having this style of conversation, of whether you construct it in this way, whether you use it as a spark into other artistic endeavors or other classroom culture and community endeavors, what is sparking for you in terms of what those ideas are? So we can start to write things in the chat. You can raise your hand and unmute. We'll sort of use this as a way to just start to think through ideas in whatever format feels best for you. You want to write something down if you want to talk it through. Or just any contemplation that's coming to mind, whatever's coming up for you, coming out of listening to this style of story. Hannah, go ahead.
I just kind of wanted to piggyback off of what Sandy said, because we're currently using it, and I'm very excited about it because my kids were very confused about what I was asking them to do when it comes to oral histories or oral stories. And they kind of thought that they had to identify this big moment in their lives or a big issue that they wanted to highlight. But then with StoryCorps, it's the small moments that matter. And it's all the questions that you would have never asked naturally. And when we did our veterans portraits, I had a lot of my kids who were coming back and saying, you know, I never knew that about my grandfather who was in the Army, or I never knew that about my cousin who is a Marine. Like, I didn't know these stories. So, well, you didn't ask. So it really sparked some conversations that kids had never had with their own family members that I thought were very important conversations. And they're things that I always valued as a kid, and things that my mom specifically instilled in me, of like asking people questions and listening to stories, you know, that my grandparents tell me, or that my parents tell me, or whomever, that our kids just don't do anymore. And I agree with what Sandy said, that sometimes our social media life tries to blow things out of proportion. It's got to be this big, massive event in your life. But really, it's the small things in life that matter. And sometimes it's the small acts that people do in your life that make the biggest difference. And that was what I really liked about some of the StoryCorps videos that I watched today, is that they highlighted just the good in humanity, that there is good in the world. And I think kids need more of that in their lives and less of what's on social media.
Oh, Hannah, thank you so much. I might like come have Wendy like get me in touch with you so I can pick your brain more about what you've been doing with those veterans projects. Wendy shared a link in the chat. Thanks, Wendy. To one of the tools that exists at StoryCorps, which is just a great questions list, like where there are a number of questions on different topics that can really get you started. And I'll share some more resources after this too, you know, that we have for, you know, thinking about, you know, for teachers and in classrooms to really just help students think about, right? Like, if I'm going to talk to someone, what are 3 questions that I really want to ask? Like, how do I choose those questions? How can I ask a follow-up question to keep that conversation going? Does anyone else want to unmute? You can just, I think we're not a crowd that's clamoring too hard, so you can just unmute yourself and talk. But I'm also seeing folks talk about how other opportunities for students to talk with parents and grandparents about their own childhoods, to sort of feel that connection. Using stories. So I love this. We have lots of stories in our collection. So using those to prompt reflections, you know, to practice listening and to reflect on those stories. And again, I love this, asking 5th graders to look back in that transition and say, what are my memories of elementary school as I maybe move on to a new stage, and having a moment of reflection and honoring that. Stories as a way to sort of engage with the content. You know, what is the meaning behind a song you're teaching? And I love this other idea of just the power of stories, right? That it's stories that engage people. So if you want to recruit people to join your band, your choir, another group, like that's going to draw people in a different way than just maybe saying you should join. It's great. Yeah. So Hannah's saying it's like a time capsule. We look back and can maybe look back at ourselves. A 5th grader, right, could do something, and then they could maybe do that again when they're transitioning at the next transition into high school. You know, they can listen back to themselves. It's really, really lovely. I love that. I am gonna pause it. I want to do this all day, really. But I'm gonna pause it there so I can share with you a few. Let me see. I'm gonna try to take myself back just to share a few quick resources, just to think about what's available to you as you think about how, you know, how can you just access StoryCorps resources. And I'll link something in here too, but I'll send it to you, Wendy. That might be easier to get to everyone, just so that you don't have to remember this or find it. But one is On StoryCorps' website, those 3-minute pieces that we were listening to and watching animations, we have 20 years worth of them. And so there are just so many that you can find that really connect to what you're doing. A great way to just have a really simple, short practice of listening. We do have some sort of lesson plans that you can use all the way through, but also you can take little pieces. This set, which there we go. On my back, I lost. Is really focused on thinking about sort of the core of why stories matter, listening practice, asking great questions, and thinking about recognizing the strengths in one another, and thinking about the people in our lives. We talked a little bit about, I think you have tools at your disposal, but we have free digital recording tools. We have the app I talked about and Connect. All of that feeds into our online archive website. So that means that you can be contributing to it. That's a tougher question if you're dealing with elementary kids. We like to really protect child privacy. So we do not recommend that they're in that space. But I want you to know that this exists as sort of a democratizing tool for you to be able to contribute into that space. And every year we have what we call the Great Thanksgiving Listen, which really is just a time to encourage everyone, students everywhere and beyond. You don't have to be a student or in a classroom to do this, but really invites everyone to think about intergenerational conversation and make that a part of your classroom, whether you record it and add it into StoryCorps collection, or whether you're just doing that in your classroom and sharing that and thinking about other ways to translate those stories. So we always hear great things from folks who they might have a conversation with their parent, and the assignment is to take from that and turn that into a digital story, or to turn that into a writing exercise, to write the story of their family, or to find other visual ways to express that. So again, as some folks had said that you're already doing, to use that as a prompting point for other activities. We already did that. And so all of this exists again as ways to think about how you can use story that already exists as a reflection tool, as an engagement tool, how you can help students really feel empowered to either tell their own story or ask the questions of the people in their lives to really create those stories. And then either in our digital tools or tools that you have, to really give them practice and power in constructing that themselves, in creating media on their own. And I will say that I love working with young people because they love when you bring out the microphones and the headphones and start to practice that and put those on and really get, not just say like, don't touch that, that's not for yours to touch, but really experiment and explore. It is so empowering to do that. And, just a little more history on StoryCorps. Wendy, I'll send you this link too, in case people want to listen to it. But our founder, Dave Isay, he was an audio documentarian. And so StoryCorps really emerged first as a project out of that work that he did. But the project that really prompted the spirit of StoryCorps is a project called Ghetto Life 101. And what he really did was, in Chicago, there were two 13-year-old boys, and he gave them microphones and he taught them how to use it and had them go into the community and talk to their family and talk to their neighbors about their neighborhood and about their home. And that really is the spirit of everything at StoryCorps, which is we don't have to, as adults, or as people who have the privilege of space in the media or celebrities, do not have to be the ones who sort of own all of that. Young people in particular, that's what brought me to StoryCorps originally, that they can own those stories too. They can participate in that. They have everything they need to do that, particularly if we support them and give them the tools and encouragement and the practice. And so I love giving them a microphone. I love, watching them really feel empowered to respect it and take care of it, and to feel like, yes, I have questions and I get to ask them. And so I just really encourage all of that. So I'm being so mindful of our time. And before we go, I want to share, I'm going to share maybe two more things. One is, and And I know we didn't even have time for questions. See, it's too short. It's too short, Wendy. We'll have to reprise. We'll have a reprise. I'm going to share one really quick voice from a student. This is going to make us go over like 1 minute, who also experienced StoryCorps in the classroom. So I just want to come back to that question of what this means to students. Let's listen to that really quickly. And then when that's over, I'm going to go right into one of our most recent animations that it's one of my favorites. That's all true. But this one has a particular connection for me. And I'm going to go right into that animation. So if in the meantime you have to run right at the dot at 5 o'clock, I just want to thank you so much for being in this space and listening to these stories with me.
StoryCorps was really different.
We've got some. I don't hear anything either. I don't think we have any audio.
I think you have to keep your mic on for us to be able to hear it.
Oh, hold on 1 second. Well, thank you for being in that quiet space for a moment. Let me just see. I lost my video then too, didn't I? Okay. Oh. Let's try this again. I am going to mute myself, but we're going to.
StoryCorps was really different for me because I'd never done anything like that before in like any of my classes, and it was just like the one day of the week that I really looked forward to because I just got to share like a part of who I am with people because I'm not the most social person out there, so to be able to have people understand a part of who I am made me feel as though like I was showing people that I'm my own individual and that like I'm unique. I gave a StoryCorps recording on why I wear my headscarf and how it affected me and like how I came to that decision, and I felt like it helps like get rid of like other thoughts people might have had about who I am or like what I believe in. I loved it. I mean, it just made me realize that my story does matter. I'm not just like a statistic or like just a random kid. I'm my own person, and what happens to me in my life is significant and important. Story.
I was imagining myself playing a saxophone. And I brought home a note. I showed my mom, the school is bringing in a instrument salesman, and all the kids are going to be there that want to be in band. And there was this huge dust storm. She goes, there's no way that we can drive in this dust storm, mijo. It's just too dangerous. So what I did was I took this little statue of the Virgen of Guadalupe and I put her on the window. And I said, I really want to be in the band. Please make this storm go away. 10 minutes later, I just stopped. And I went over to Mom and I went, no wind. So now she's in a really tough spot. So we get in the car and we drive to the school, and there's all these new shiny instruments. And the parents are just writing checks out. And my mom looks at one of the checks. It's like $650. That's 6 weeks worth of work for my dad. So she says, where's the band director? ¿Dónde está el director? So we went in, and the man said, well, the senior left behind this trombone. It's not saxophone. It's not shiny. It has a little bit of green rust around it. And he opens it up, and the crushed velvet is no longer crushed. It's like annihilated inside. And I'm just looking at it going, that is so pathetic. And my mom says, ¿Cuánto? How much? The director says, $50. And Mom worked out a payment plan. She sent $20 initially, and then she sent him $5 every week. But I was horrible. So I sat on the toilet in the bathroom because it was the only room that had a door. And my poor mother had to listen to me play the same thing over and over again. And she would be turning up the radio as loud as she could. But I also noticed that the more I practiced and the better I got, the radio was turned down a little further. And I still have that trombone to this day.
And that's why our child plays
the trombone. She could have played any instrument she wanted, and I encouraged that. I said, no, Mija, really, you can play any instrument you want. I could be one of those parents who could write a check out for a saxophone, anything you want. She goes, no, I want to play the trombone.
You can't see, but like this one is making me this one is making me cry today. But that was my instrument. I played the trombone. So I feel a real special.
Me too. Me too.
Oh my God. See, it's just.
And my dad played the trombone. I played his trombone.
Oh, I love it. Yes, my family, low brass family, lots of baritone players before me. Anyway, I love that. I'm gonna send Wendy some resources to send out to you so that you can all kind of click into the things that we did. Wendy, I'll make sure to send links to the specific stories that we listened to so you can find those again while you explore other stories. And I do want to say, you can reach out to me anytime, if you have questions or if you want to share about how you're using this in the classroom, or we are really interested in the question, of how can we make our materials more accessible to you so that it's easier for you to bring those into the classroom, whether that's stories, whether that's the methods, etc. So, if you're the kind of person who likes to chat about that, reach out to me. I would love to talk more. We really want to understand, how we can help bridge all of this into the classroom for you. So thank you all so much for spending this time. Wendy, thank you for inviting me. And if you have questions, I'll have Wendy just put my email with that information too, so that we didn't have time to really dig in and ask questions, so that you can just reach out and ask them directly. And lastly, I just want to say thank you all so much for being the teachers that you are, and really, providing space for students to learn the arts and express them, and have that be a part of their lives. So thank you so much.
Emily, thank you so very much. So very much. And Tony, I fixed that on the evaluation. If you all have already filled it out, don't worry, but I did go in and fix it. I thought I fixed all of those, but sorry. I thought I checked them, but sometimes I get so excited about the session and then I'm like, this is this session and this is so sorry. We thought we fixed all of those, but we'll fix it. So if you already put hero, just leave it as hero. Don't worry about going back and fixing it. We'll take care of it on our end. So it is fixed now, but Emily, thank you so very much. You all, thanks for letting me know that there was a boo-boo on there. Just got so excited about all the great stuff that you all are going to hear. And this is wonderful. I get so excited. You all had such amazing ideas. I'm also, when I send this wonderful resource list that Emily's going to send, I'm also going to send your ideas that you all had. So I will copy the chat. You all had such wonderful ideas about, what if they're in 5th grade? What about the 6th graders? Interviewing some 6th graders that have already left, and you could show it to the 5th graders. That way, there's that anxious, what to expect in the middle school. You could interview some of those 5th graders that left you and say, hey, don't be so nervous about 6th grade. These are 5th graders that were in your building. And there's just so many wonderful things that you all think of that was triggering my thoughts. So I don't know. There's just, you all I know will think of a ton of others that we could add. We could possibly put those in our Wakelets as well. So great ideas. We'll add on to that of how you all are using it. And that might be something that Emily wants to tag on to as well and look at those ideas. So wonderful, wonderful session. Makes me super excited. Yay. y'all are tremendous. I told you, Emily, this group is
I
amazing.
know.
Love
I
them.
love it. And I just want to come tag along to more of your things now. I hope
Exactly.
everyone gets to, this is the time of day. I'm always like, I hope now everyone gets to eat some really good dinner or put your feet up.
Yeah.
And just
And everybody will go and start listening to some StoryCorps. And you did not fairly warn us enough. I was sending you all, like, I don't know if you could see me like wiping some tears. So you did not fairly warn us for those, that they were tear
no, I
jerkers.
should have said bring snacks and tissues. Oh yeah, see, I want to go to Lynn's house now. I'm ready. I'm like, I'm
I
hungry.
know.
I'm
I want to
ready
go to
to
Lynn's
go.
house. Yeah,
Thank you,
Lynn, you
Lynn.
didn't tell us.
I often say too, I know we're all just like, you said you sometimes stay on and chat. So I like to pretend like it used to be it. I love the virtual world because that means I can be here with you and we can all be together, even though we have to be a lot of places. But I really love the part where it's like before and we all are eating snacks, like, oh, we brought cookies for you. and so I like to imagine that's what we're doing now. Like, oh, we had the snacks to share and we were all just enjoying that part of coming together.
Yeah.
So I pretend, or I bring my own little coffee and my own, I say, oh, now's the time to like eat your muffin or whatever it is that you happen to do. I guess this time of day for some people, whatever that is, whether you're drinking tea or you're drinking another kind of tea, whatever
Yeah.
whatever you need to do at this time of day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you're on your like second or third
Yeah.
coat.
Right? Yeah, see?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
hope you can sleep, Wendy.
Yeah, no kidding. That's probably why I can't sleep. So, well,
Uh,
thank you so much. This was fantastic. Lynn, go and enjoy your shrimp Alfredo. We'll all be there in about 30 minutes. Oh, you all have a wonderful evening. This was great. I'm looking forward to seeing how you're going to use it. And Hannah, keep us posted how you're using it. Awesome.
Wendy, I will say you did not exaggerate about how important it was for us to be here today. So
I know. I
ever
don't
feel bad about that.
exaggerate. Not always. So
Yeah. I know
This-
all of us are almost done, but I'll tell you this, and you probably feel the same way, and I know Tony's thinking the same thing.